Hey, everybody. Benvenidos. I am joining you today from Panama City, Panama, and I'm super excited that it seems that the technology is going to be working in our favor today. It says, I just got a message on YouTube saying that I was in fact live. So if you're out there listening and you're watching live, if you would please put in the chat where you are watching from, I would really appreciate it. Or just say hello. That will let me know that you can, in fact, hear me, which is really important. I don't want to have to start over and see if, in fact, I have a lot of really good material to share with you all today. And I made for the first time like a little mini presentation with all of the main points that I thought would be helpful to share today. And hopefully, I will be able to share it. So let me start out by introducing myself. If you are new to this channel, welcome. And if you're just scrolling through the internet, maybe you're struggling with Spanish, there was something about this title and thumbnail that really spoke to you. I hope that you will find today's episode really helpful. I'm going to be talking primarily about my own journey with learning Spanish today. And then in a couple of weeks, I hope to interview. I don't know if it'll be a live stream because it seems like the people I wanted to come on are not available on Wednesday evenings. So, but I want to interview some people about their journeys as well. And then perhaps if there's still interest, I want to talk to some experts or some people who are in the field or in the discipline of teaching Spanish about their perspectives as well. So my name is DrCrystal Harris, hence the name of the channel. And on this channel, we talk about career, professional advice, wellness in the workplace, wellness that is holistic, which includes the workplace, as well as travel. And each of these topics is related to the fact that after teaching for over 18 years, I decided to retire early in order to travel abroad. And as I'm traveling abroad, one of my main professional goals is to become more functional in Spanish. Maybe not fluent, but functional. And so I am currently visiting my Panama is my fifth Spanish speaking country. So I'm trained as a social psychologist, and I taught in a department of psychology at my alma mater and at a four-year state university in Chicago. And I also taught in an interdisciplinary studies program, primarily looking at social issues courses, research methods, research writing. And that is what I have been up to until about 9 months ago, just hit 9 months retired. So I'm a brand new early retired, semi-retired. And the reason I say semi-retired is that I do have some other professional goals that are in alignment with being on sabbatical. So those include career coaching, helping people who are in a position similar to I was during my career, where I really struggled to find trustworthy people to help me navigate my career in terms of development that I needed and development that was not needed, but sort of noise in the system, really being able to discern those two things. So as a result of that need that I still see even at the end of my career, as I was coaching new faculty and on hiring teams for new faculty, I still saw that as a big gap in higher education, particularly for underrepresented groups and people of color who are coming into higher education as maybe first or second generation doctoral level experts. It's a whole thing I've actually talked about on this channel before. So if that's of interest to you, there are some videos already about that. So I want to talk today about the goal that I find that when I'm on sabbatical, I don't do a lot of talking because I'm by myself. I talked a lot to order breakfast this morning. And then when I start talking after 5 or 10 minutes, it's like my throat gets dry. So today's topic I called Lost in Translation. And it's really a continuation of the series I started about sabbatical breakdowns and breakthroughs. So a lot of my early breakdowns were the fact that I was a beginning Spanish speaker. I had been taking Spanish. In fact, I was telling my tutor earlier today that I was so proud of myself when I hit Duolingo 500 consecutive days. I think it's on Facebook or it might be on Instagram. I have all of the badges that I got on Duolingo. And so, as you know, 500 days is just under 2 years. And the reality is, despite knowing a lot of Spanish words and Spanish or I should say being familiar with certain things about speaking Spanish, I was not actually speaking Spanish to anyone. And I feel like that is one of the limitations of Duolingo. However, for people who just need to get started, I think Duolingo is a very accessible, meaning free. It tells you, the app tells you that you can learn in 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. So it is true that it's fun when you're in the beginning stages, and it's a lot to learn an entire language, right? So making those small baby steps, even 100 days or 50 days in a row, perhaps will lead you to whatever your next normal step is. So for me, not only was learning to speak Spanish a breakdown point, it was also a breakthrough point. And by that, I mean that in a breakthrough, it means that you have the meltdown, but you also develop the capacity to really bounce back and to adapt to the situation that you're in. And so that to me is one of the most powerful breakthroughs of my sabbatical, is that I attempted to do something that was very, very difficult in a lot of difficult scenarios or circumstances, right? So it's a difficult task and I'm doing it in a difficult place, but I'm also learning how to find resources, how to bring resources to my attention or focal point at the time that I need them, and also to build up that muscle of speaking Spanish when I'm not in that heightened, stressful situation. So those are some of the reasons why I think this is like a really important topic. So many people are looking at leaving the United States in particular because of what's going on in our political system right now. There's a lot of despair and hopelessness. And even if they don't want to leave like permanently, they're like, you know what? I just need a month, 6 months, 3 months to figure out, if I were to leave completely, what would that look like? Where would I go? And the truth is, Mexico and Central America, and maybe even Western Europe, meaning Spain, are really attractive places to many American expats, United States expats, and certainly to African American expats, because all of these communities have flourishing communities of Black expats that are tens and thousands wide, that get together and are supporting each other and have made the successful transition. In my case, I'm actually on sabbatical. I'm not really country shopping per se. I am interested in finding a place where I can go back to that country, that city, routinely, meaning 2 or 3 months every year, maybe 6 months every year over time, having a milestone birthday in 2 weeks and then in a year and 2 weeks. So, and I say that because I'm going to spend the whole year celebrating. But that's important because when I think about what I want my life to look like, I think of being on sabbatical as a lifestyle that I want to be a part of my professional identity for a while. So the purpose of this video is to help people who may be considering going to a Spanish-speaking country, if maybe even only for a short sabbatical for 3 months, to think about how does the process of learning Spanish work for people who've done it, and what were some of the pitfalls, and to just really inspire you. So the purpose of this video is to actually encourage you to just get started. And if you got started and you quit, that's very normal. And most people who are actually functional Spanish speakers will tell you that there were many times that they quit along the way. I actually have lost count of the number of times I quit. And by quit, I don't necessarily mean, in my case, that I was consciously saying, hey, I'm going to quit learning Spanish. What I would say is I was committed to doing certain things that I knew that were going to lead me into speaking Spanish. And then I stopped doing those things. I'm back. So technically I need to start over from the beginning. I don't know if we have folks watching. If you're watching me live, I would appreciate it. Even if you're watching in the replay, I would love to know where you are watching from. My name is DrCrystal Harris. So I did a live stream earlier that it didn't appear to be going live. So it looked like it was a recording. And as a result, I'm going to upload that. So there'll be a part 1 and a part 2. So as not to prolong the intro, I'm going to get right into the topic. I am really here to motivate you to start your Spanish speaking journey. I'm DrCrystal Harris and I'm on sabbatical. And this is my second chapter of my sabbatical. It's the Central America chapter. And those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, I really appreciate you. I think we're at like 126 subscribers now. So welcome back. I'm so honored that you are here with me, and I'm excited to have new people join. Feel free to not just like and comment on the video, because that tells YouTube that this is content that is valuable and should be available to people. But also, if you're new here, this is a place where we talk about not just career in the traditional sense, but like your identity as a professional in terms of the goals that you have for yourself and the things that you need to do to earn an income and keep a roof over your head. So typically my experience has been in corporate America and higher education. And so my channel tends to be towards people who are in education or care deeply about education, or maybe in the past or currently or hope to be full-time educators. We're also a place where people love to learn and love to learn languages, which is why we're here today. So for those of us that love travel, we often decide to travel to Spanish-speaking countries because there's a lot of them. I actually have that in my notes somewhere, how many Spanish-speaking countries. I think it's 21 countries have Spanish as their official native language. 60 million people have Spanish as their native language on the globe. So that's a lot of people. So that's not counting all the people like me who want to be functionally literate and functional speakers of Spanish, right? And then the people who are fluent, that it's their second or third language. So because of all that, I think this is a great topic. And the reason why I'm going into this topic is because, as I said, I want to inspire you. It's a difficult journey to learn a new language. It's a difficult journey to learn to speak your native language correctly. For those of us that are in education, we know the ups and downs that students have with speaking and writing according to the so-called standard English, academic English. But that's a whole nother video that I won't get into. So speaking Spanish or speaking a second or third language that's not your native tongue is, of course, it's going to be difficult, right? So I really want to inspire you, if you're new and you want to learn Spanish, to get started and to know what to expect, or at least share some of the insights that I have from my own struggles. And then if you are a person who maybe you love to travel and you were learning Spanish, but you gave up because you got busy, life got busy lifing, please know that you're also like a human being and that that's completely normal. And that many of the people who are functional speakers or fluent speakers, they have, their journey was not, their journey was more circular back and forth. So as a result of that complicated journey that we have with keeping learning Spanish a priority, many people have felt discouraged and decided to quit or take time off. So I really want to let you know that that is something that you should not be ashamed of. It's something that you should know is normal. What is also important if you're going to be successful is to develop that muscle of resilience, which means that even when things aren't going according to plan and you're really struggling, that you can improve, you can get yourself back going again. Yeah, so there are 5 reasons why. There are actually more than 5 reasons. One of them is safety and emergency communication. One of them is in order to build confidence and independence as a traveler, particularly a solo traveler. The third is that you will save money by being a native speaker, trying to endeavor to do that. Deeper cultural experiences, having a stronger human connection amongst people that you're visiting. And then there's a host of cognitive benefits that I lumped all together. And then a bonus reason is social and emotional development. There's something about learning to speak Spanish that's going to build those muscles as well. So it's important to speak Spanish. So let's get into some of these. So the first one was for safety and emergency communication. I feel like that one is pretty obvious. Let me go back. Okay, I think there is a way that I can stop them. All right, hopefully you're looking at the one I'm saying. So you can call 911 States in the case of emergency. And even if before you go someplace, you should find out what is the process for getting emergency help wherever you are. And finding out, for example, if you see a crime or witness to a crime or a victim of a crime, if there is someone in medical distress. These are all things that if you have some idea of how to use the language, you'll be able to do a basic, sharing your name, your location and what the nature of the emergency is. So I like to think that, we who are United States citizens, we also come from a place where we know that things can quickly happen. And often when it comes to traveling to other countries, people's first reaction is it safe? Well, we live in a place that most of the world would say is also unsafe. We live in a place where anybody, for any reason, including children, have access to violent firearms, right? So we don't live in a, but because we're at home and because we speak our native language, we're able to respond appropriately in those types of emergency situations. And so you want to be able to do that as you travel as well. So the next reason is that it will build confidence and independence. So what do I mean by this? So usually we know that we have technology and that the technology is very good in terms of allowing us to be able to say what we want to say using a translator app, for example. We also have web pages, and I'm not saying I don't use these tools also. You can put, I forget what it's called, but basically it's not an app. There's a function that you can put on your laptop or your iPad that will allow it to translate pages automatically from whatever language they're in into your host language. You can tell it what you want it to do. You can also tell it to translate English into Spanish as a tool to help you with your reading, to practice things that you know how to do, right? Things that you're familiar with. So it builds confidence and it builds independence. And by independence, I mean you can be less reliant on these tools for everyday conversations. And you can use these tools to prepare yourself to be more independent in the situations that are upcoming. A good example of this is when I went to Mexico the very first time. I stayed for 3 weeks. And with my 500 days, I talked about this in part one of the video, which I don't think you all have seen yet. I made 500 days of Duolingo. I was so proud of myself. I went to where did I go? Playa del Carmen. And I spent 3 weeks in an Airbnb, a wonderful place. And the folks who worked at the front desk and in the building in general, including the housekeeping staff, they would see me there because I'd been there, every day for a couple of weeks. And I would have little conversations with them. But every once in a while, I would prepare myself to have a conversation with them. So I would prepare myself by using these different tools and resources to have a conversation about the weather, to have a conversation about their children, to ask them about what they were going to do for the weekend, because I was not familiar with how to have a conversation with the actual Spanish speaking person. And as I would succeed in asking them about of course, it's Mexico, it was July, it was hot as hell, right? I could say a couple times it rained, but I could say a couple of basic words about, well, how are you doing? And beyond, how are you doing? Because basically you can only say, I could say, I'm doing good. I could say I'm sad, which are you going to say that to strangers? They don't care. That's kind of inappropriate. But understanding the context, like what else could I say besides I'm doing good? Or they would often ask you, how do you like that was another thing that I learned to answer. People would often ask me in Mexico, so how do you like it here? Are you enjoying Playa del Carmen? And then I learned how to say a few things about what I enjoyed. Yes, I've been going to the pool every day and I really enjoy the feel of the sun, even though it's hot when I'm in the cold water. I could say I really enjoy eating out at the restaurants. I'm starting to explore, a different dish, try a different dish, and then I would name the dish. So building confidence and independence is another reason that it's really important, especially if you're a traveler, to learn Spanish. Understand how to read signs or read the room or look up the culture. You might not know how to negotiate. I have a tutor. His name is Juan. Shout out to Juan on Preply, who once went through all of the language on how to negotiate a sale at a market. And then we practiced that, and he gave me sort of like a cheat sheet. Now, I actually ended up cheating by going to the market the very first time with someone who was a fluent Spanish speaker who had lived in Mexico for years, things of that nature. So cost savings comes from, again, having that confidence and that independence. If you go to a market and you know something costs a certain amount of money, you could then say, hey, I'd like to get 2 of these or 3 of these, and I can offer such and such a price. But you got to be able to also understand Spanish enough to know the responses that they're giving you. And then when you do, and how to say, yes, I'll take it, how to say, no, it's too expensive. I felt really uncomfortable being, I guess, a foreigner saying that I didn't want to spend that much. But what I learned to say is, oh, this is too much for me. And then sort of the ball is back in the storekeeper's court to say, hey, I'll give it to you for X, whatever the lower price is, as opposed to offering, a low price or a low ball price. That's just me. So cost savings comes about because as you gain confidence and you begin to understand the cultural nuances of negotiating for things, you'll be able to pay less. The other thing is when you go up to, any type of experience and you making an effort, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, to speak the native language, I feel like it also puts less of a target on you for what's known as gringo prices, right? Okay, this is an ignorant American who doesn't know anything, so I'm just going to charge them as much as I can because they have no idea what the prices should be. So you can also pay more attention to what the norms are and know what you should be paying when you understand the language. So that's one of the benefits of why it's important to speak Spanish if you're traveling in a Spanish speaking country. And then the next area has to do with deeper cultural experiences. And this one is a really good one because it has, the social scientist in me wanted to look up some research. So I did, in fact, look up through, Google Scholar, an article that was published in 2021 about said language learners have more authentic connections because of their understanding of the culture. So if you're going through the trouble to learn to speak Spanish, one of the things you're going to do is probably also research what is going on in that area. So some of this is kind of a both and. So because you're already making a commitment to learn the language, you're making a commitment to learn, for example, what is the common foods, what are the places to go, what are maybe some of the history, some of the traditions. Maybe you're listening to music from the region. For me, I know when I went to Mexico, I watched a lot of stuff so that I would understand the Mexican accent in the region that I was in. And I did the same thing when I went to Spain last year. And so I was like, well, I guess I need to go spend some time in Spain. So while I was in Spain, I did find that the language was a little easier to navigate. But what happens in Spain is they actually don't speak the national language. They speak their regional language, Castellano, and I forget some of the other ones. What ends up also happening is that you're going to have a more meaningful experience, and you're going to ask for advice and you're going to ask better questions by showing up as an informed, interested party at whatever the experiences are. So when I go to a museum, I've already looked at certain things, and so I'm maybe looking for specific things. I have certain opinions about certain things, and I want to understand how other people feel about whatever that is. I mean, for me, it's art. I love an art museum, and I particularly look for art museums who have art done by women. And I'm very curious to know what has been the struggle or the experience of female artists in that country in that time period and how the museum came to own this art. So that's like one of the ways that I feel like learning Spanish has helped me see things differently and have that curiosity, that intellectual curiosity, which we're going to talk about also later. So another piece is the next one. I think this is number 5 is stronger human connections. I think this is the obvious one. If you're in somebody's country and you can speak to them in their language, not only do they have a deep appreciation for you trying, even if you're not doing a good job, meaning you don't like say the word correctly, the tense isn't correct, the grammar might not correct, the masculine, feminine really freaks a lot of people out when they first get started. And even when you think the masculine and the feminine words, I'll be honest with you, it'll still trip you up that there are some words that are exception, just like in English. We don't have masculine, feminine, but we have all these rules, and every rule has a bunch of exceptions. So every language, I think, probably does a little that, having exceptions. But the effort that it takes to show that you're interested and concerned and curious and open-minded causes people to see you in a really authentic way. There's also an air of vulnerability and humility that comes in approaching relationships with new people anyway. But when you're approaching it in a language where you're showing a weakness, you're going to most likely show up more authentic than you would if you were kind of in this sort of know everything position or feeling confident position necessarily. And I think what I have decided to do is to show up being confident, making the mistakes that I make. So I am always very gracious when people correct me and I say, muchas gracias. I want to be quiero correcto. I want to be correct when it comes to speaking your language. So thank you for that. So I think it's important to be gracious when people will correct you. Sometimes you can tell by their body language and their facial expression that they want to understand you, but they don't know, whatever word you're using might not be the word that they use for something. And so that happens to me actually every day, not every day, but a lot of days still, because like I have been here in Panama City since Monday, so only 3 days. I was in Spain 2.5 months, and it took me 2.5 months for the things that I would normally do on a regular basis to know all the words and phrases, not all of them, but most of the words and phrases that they used for something. This morning, I went to order breakfast and I was all prepared. I was very focused on giving my order in a timely manner. It was a busy place, and I didn't want to be like that person, that foreigner that holds everybody up. And also, it was at the time where people were going to work. It was a breakfast spot right by the train station. And the guy's first question to me, he asked it 3 times. I had no idea what he was saying, but it was, do you want a takeaway? But whatever phrase he was using for takeaway, because that was something I was very familiar with in Spain, not only would people say it, but there would be a line, not a line, there would be a sign of like a certain line or area of the restaurant or the store for people to go if they were having takeaways. The other thing that I learned very quickly in Costa Rica and in Spain is, do you want a bag? That was something that the cashiers all said, no matter where you were. Do you want a bag? Or even a waiter at the end of your meal or something, waitress at the end of your meal. So bolsa, bolsa, bolsa. So once you have these experiences, you're able to not only build your confidence, but it causes you to want to connect with people, and it causes people to want to connect with you. And you're then being able to have authentic friendships and share meals together. So that's the picture of the meal. When you go out to get to know people, you're able to say things and share, about your families, about the purpose of your trip, about what you like about some experience or what you don't. People will give you recommendations and you'll be able to ask them deeper questions. Well, why do you like that? So one of my favorite new questions to ask, because I've been practicing this with my other tutor, Jennifer, is, it's like a list of general questions that you can ask really anybody in conversation just to become a good conversation. So one of my favorite things to ask is, what's your favorite food in this neighborhood? And so when I go to a hotel or an Airbnb, or I run into employees or people in the neighborhood, I can say, well, or even if you're at a restaurant where somebody is working, you can say, well, I really want seafood. What's your favorite place to get whatever that is? Or what do you recommend is another good one. So definitely stronger human connections is one of the benefits and why it's important for us to learn to speak Spanish or whatever the language is of the places that you want to travel. We know that when we use any part of our brain, we are giving that part of the brain muscle memory. We're strengthening what's known as the neural pathways. And when we learn a language, there's research that says that there are pathways on the right side of your brain and the left side of the brain. So like the creative, emotional side, and then sort of the technical, executive functioning, processing, planning, evaluating side. I personally think that there's a lot more complexity to it, but this is sort of like, I don't know, the kindergarten version. And because this video is not about cognitive development, I don't want to go too deep into this, but basically the pathways that in your brain, whether it's on both sides or throughout your brain, are really being strengthened as electrodes are going through those pathways. And because of that, these other things happen. Because of what's going on with the pathways within your brain, these other things happen. It increases our ability to focus and to concentrate. It increases our ability to be flexible and adaptability. and to have adaptability. And one thing I read that was really interesting, also in a Google Scholar article, and if you're kind of interested in that, I can share it with you. Where did I write the name? I don't know where I wrote it down, but I want to say it was a Harvard Press article, and it was relatively recent. But basically, it says that the reason why learning a language helps with adaptability and flexibility is that it strengthens our ability to stop focusing on something and switching. So, like, stop focusing on the wrong thing. Like, you know how sometimes when you get really upset or overworked, your mind can sort of be racing and going on and on and on, kind of majoring on the minor, as we call it. And it's hard to like stop that pattern of focus. So the quickest way to not be able to stop thinking about something is for someone to say, stop thinking about that, because then that makes you think about it, right? So, what this research study from 2024 said was that they had done a study because I guess researchers believe that the information is mixed on how being bilingual is helpful. But what this particular study was able to prove is that in a certain number of group of people, what they were able to looking at their brain waves is that they're able to quickly turn something off and switch. And that ability to turn something off and switch makes us more flexible and more adaptable. And you could see how it also allows your focus to be where it needs to be at that time instead of sort of all over the place. And then the last two really have more to do with the next slide, but they're technically cognitive benefits because you know that the brain is also responsible for our emotions. Our emotions also come through the brain. We tend to think of cognitive benefits as things that have to do with thinking only, but emotions and our thoughts, behaviors, and our emotions actually all work together. And so our capacity to be empathetic to other people and to be open-minded and to see new perspectives or see things in new ways are all parts of our brain functioning. In order to be successful at practicing Spanish, there is a part of you that has to be willing to be wrong and to be willing to be judged correctly that you're wrong, correctly, incorrectly judged. So people need to judge you and you need to be wrong. You need to be able, in my opinion, to hire a tutor. I think for me, I would not be where I was if I had not stopped Duolingo and started with a tutor. Another big fail that I had on my journey, and this is where social emotional development was really important, is that I took a program where I was with a group of people who were learning Spanish. And it was clear that in this class, there were a lot of people who actually knew Spanish well, maybe are probably at the point where I am now. Maybe I could go back to a group class and be okay. But there were a group of people there who just really didn't know any Spanish. They were like really beginner. And so it was a weird dynamic in where there were all these people who were telling you what you should be doing, but did they really know what they were supposed to be doing? And because of the price point of these classes, there was a teacher, but there were too many people for the teacher to really do anything other than to give the instructions. And then she would go into the breakout rooms and see what people were doing. And I really loved the idea of the program. I loved the idea of being able to speak in groups. But for me, who still had a lot to learn in terms of the content of how to put together a conversation, how to put together full sentences, how to respond to questions, I found it very overwhelming and very intimidating. But one of the things looking back now I can say is that when it comes to my social emotional development, you have to be willing to be wrong every time I open my mouth, I could be wrong. But now that I know that, and I know that that's what it takes in order for me to be successful, is in fact, the more times I'm wrong, the more situations where I put myself out there and I try to be correct, the more times I'm going to actually learn how I should have handled that situation. So basically, those are the reasons that it's important to learn to speak Spanish, in my opinion. And I really want to encourage anyone who's out there who's really trying to learn to speak Spanish to be bold and hire a tutor. I'm going to look into that. Obviously, not today, but at some point, I'm going to go back and update the link and share that. And then, if you are a person who's had an interesting journey learning Spanish and you would love to be interviewed or to talk with me about it on this channel, I would love to interview you. Just let me know in the comments and I will reach out to you some kind of way. I'll find you. Let's see. I just want to make sure I went through everything that I had. Also, under social and emotional learning, I wrote things about the boosted self-confidence and the boosted self-esteem, because what ends up happening, once you're willing to be wrong every time you open your mouth, you're going to not be wrong every time you open your mouth. You're going to actually have a boost of self-esteem and a boost of self-confidence, because you're getting better in ways that might seem intangible, but make the hormones of pride, which are the feel-good hormones, continue to grow. And I think there's also a certain amount of pride in being a lifelong learner and understanding that this natural curiosity is going to serve you well into the next phase of your life. Social emotional learning and development is not just for preschool age kids to learn to get along in society. It's also for us at every phase of life. There's a social emotional journey associated with getting married, associated with getting divorced, starting a new job, or losing a job, because you're changing who is in your sphere of influence, who's in your social world, per se. And you also get better listening skills and better communication skills as you go to talk about Spanish that are going to translate to your home language as well. You're going to be a better listener. So that's really it for today. I want to remind you that I have a sabbatical planning guide available in my Stan store. Let's see if I can find my bring-in. I didn't put up any of my, well, unfortunately, it looks like I was supposed to save those for each time. I don't see them. Okay, so the Stan store is stan.store /DrCrystal. And there's 3 resources there. I mentioned last week that one of my goals for this trip, I'm going to be here for 31 days and I'll be going on to Colombia, is to spend some of my planning and creativity time finishing up a list of free resources that I have to add to my Stan store. And I will be talking about that more as soon as it's complete. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. As always, I appreciate your support of this channel, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend who you think would find this content helpful. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.